Streaming worldwide, this is the Gospel America Television Network. It's time for Real Talk with the Jenkins, featuring Lady MJ, Pastor Marcella Jenkins, and Dr. G, Dr. Gary Jenkins. And now, let's join Real Talk with the Jenkins. Hi everybody, welcome to Real Talk with the Jenkins. I'm Dr. G. Lady MJ has the day off and she'll be back with us next time. This week we have a special program that we want to share with you that is about Representative Drew Darby. Representative Drew Darby recently held a town hall meeting to discuss the upcoming 14 constitutional amendments that you've got to vote on November 7th. So we recently caught up with him at a Pachyderm Club luncheon where he talked about the constitutional amendments, and let's take a look at one of the first ones that he mentions. First of all, Proposition 1. It's about, it codifies the right to engage in agricultural practices such as farming, ranching, timber, horticulture, and wildlife management on your own personal or private property. Now, there are pros and cons on all of these constitutional amendments, and here's the first one. The pros, Proposition 1 aims to ensure food security and empower producers in West Texas. It protects farmers and ranchers from patchwork local regulations or ordinances. And now, let's take a look at the cons. Proposition 1 will hurt local governments' flexibility to enforce regulations that promote health, safety, and animal welfare. Well, let's see what Representative Darby had to say as he was addressing the Pachyderm Club recently in San Angelo.
Prop 1 is the right to farm. Seems like a basic right, doesn't it? Well, you wouldn't be surprised to know that there are some municipalities in this state that have implemented ordinances and restrictions for parcels of land located within the ETJ or city limits that basically restricts their right to farm. They'll put in noise restrictions, nuisance, dust, all of those things that try to prevent farmers from utilizing their property for agricultural purposes. And so what this constitutional amendment says is there's a constitutional right to farm. And you can regulate some of those practices if they affect surrounding property owners, but they can't just stop you from farming because you want to farm, even though you're located within the city limits. Clearly, as long as the state's population is increasing, we need to make sure our food supply continues to increase proportionally. So all of this is designed to help farmers and ranchers in statute.
Okay, here's a look at Proposition 2. You can see what it's about, and you can read the pros and the cons. But again, let's see what Representative Darby had to say about this.
Proposition 2, child care facilities tax exemptions. Rusty, I see you, and some of these apply to, we'll talk about apply to the property taxes and the collection of them. What Proposition 2 does is say that if a local governmental entity wants to give an exemption for a facility that's giving child care services, then they could exempt up to, I think, 50% of that value to that piece of property in order to encourage child care facilities being practiced at that site. Well, this is meant to recognize the value of child care services in our communities and make sure that as the federal government is removing COVID funds that were used to support that industry during a time where people needed it the most, now those are being withdrawn. We're looking to support child care facilities where we can. That's the pro. The con is, in any of these things that we'll talk about today, when you exempt something, then you simply shift the tax burden to the other. So while we all talk about exemptions and need to support our veterans, and clearly our veterans community is very important, we want to support them, and child care facilities are important too, but You know, as we look at the reality of collecting property taxes, if you exempt certain things, then that simply shifts the burden to pay for city services and county services and school services to another group. So, so consider that as you will, and it's more of enabling language that allows cities and counties to grant that exemption if they want to. The legislature does not prescribe it, but they can do that.
Now there's Proposition 3. And here you can see it. Proposition 3 places a preemptive ban on any wealth tax or net worth tax in the Texas Constitution. There are pros and cons on that, as you can see. And here's a message from Representative Darby.
Proposition 3, banning a wealth tax. Just like your state government has said, we're not going to have an income tax here in the state. What this proposition is saying is allowing you as voters to say there can never be a tax based upon your assets or the differential between your assets and your liabilities, thereby forming the amount of your wealth. Some states tax that, and we want to make sure as a state we give you the opportunity to weigh in. If the legislature ever wants to consider that tax, and I can't conceive it would ever do that, at least the voters would have to approve that. So that's what this proposition does. And again, I voted for that. I voted for both of the two previous ones, and I voted for this one too.
Now, Proposition 4 is the single largest property tax cut in Texas history, increasing appraisal caps, compression, and homestead exemptions, as well as adding elected positions to the appraisal boards. And Representative Darby had this comment about Proposition 4.
Prop 4, the biggest. This raises the mandatory homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000. Allows for temporary limits on appraised values for non-residential homestead property, commercial property included, to say you can't go up more than 20% in value. If these properties are worth $5 million or less, you can't go up on appraised value more than 20% in any 1 year. So what we've seen is there's been some constraint on residential property valuations, but not as much constraint on commercial valuations. You know this, and I keep telling the legislature this, or reminding them, businesses don't pay taxes. Consumers pay taxes. The people who buy your products pay taxes. And you simply pass those on as business owners to the consumer who buys your product. It makes the operation of your business less likely or less profitable. So I think some sort of constraint upon rising valuation is a good thing. And so I would say that this is one of those things that is great because it increases your exemptions from $40,000 to $100,000 on residential homestead. I think that's a good thing. It exempts a whole lot of homeowners here in Tom Green County. May not exempt as many in Travis or Tarrant County, but certainly one of the things it also does is extends those benefits of the prior exemptions to our elderly and disabled over 65. And so what we've done in tax compression under our school taxes, you know, a lot of that benefit has escaped those that are already have their property taxes frozen. And what this helps do is give those people the opportunity to participate in some of those that compression of our school taxes. So this is what we fought almost 90 days in special sessions for. Prop 4 is the benefit of that negotiation, and so I would, and again, I'm not doing it justice, this is a huge opportunity for taxpayers to weigh in on getting a larger homestead exemption. I would offer to you that I voted for this. Please to vote for it, and would urge you to do so.
Next is Proposition 5, a proposition that creates the Texas University Fund and appropriates over $100 million to Texas universities.
Prop 5 is the Texas University Fund. Those of you who are familiar with our higher education system know that when Texas was formed, our forefathers were insightful to set aside land to benefit public universities in this state. That land has been bountiful and has produced billions of dollars. Mason knows this, having worked for the Texas A&M system, that A&M and UT have benefited from the Permanent University Fund. But not so for Texas Tech University, for Texas State University, University of Houston. And so the legislature, the overriding policy that we had during the last session is to spend the $30+ billion worth of surplus we had. We've never had that kind of opportunity. I've been there over the years where we've had a $10 billion deficit. We've never had this kind of surplus. But I have found that the more slop in the trough, the more hogs tend to show up. And there were a lot of hogs showed up. And quite naturally, members of the Texas Tech community, Texas State, University of Houston said, well, wait a minute, what about us? We'd like the benefits of that kind of endowment. We listened. And so we're going to initially fund that with, I think there's $100 million starting out. But over the years, that fund is going to grow and grow with interest and earnings from the Economic Stabilization Fund. And there are marvelous projections on the growth options in that fund. And I would tell you that Angelo State University, a part of the Texas Tech University system, is going to benefit as being a part of that. So I would urge you to vote for Proposition 5.
Proposition 6 creates a dedicated Texas Water Fund and new water supply fund.
Do I need to tell the people in this room what water means? The San Angelo? It's understated to say we need access to more water resources here in this state. We actually have as much water as we need here in this state for current population, but guess what? It's not located where we need it, and the population is growing. So what this fund would do, we put $1 billion into this, provided you approve it. And what they're going to do is going to look for that next resource, the next water resource out there that we can bring to Texas or use technology to generate more water resources, whether it be oil and gas waste recovery or desalination or effluents. All of that is on the pathway for support.
Proposition 7 creates a Texas Energy Fund with $5 billion to provide loans to incentivize dispatchable energy generation.
You may or may not have remembered Winter Storm Uri, in which we had some rolling blackouts and it's been a period of time without electricity. Well, the Texas legislature has since that time devoted time and resources to try to make it better, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think a lot of what we've done is misguided, is simply putting a lipstick on that pig. I don't think it really does anything, Gary, but the pig damn sure looks a little prettier, and hopefully you'll like that pig. Well, Prop 7 is an effort to hopefully use $5 billion of your money to entice big corporations to build thermal plant generation for electricity. And they're doing so by offering a loan of 3%. Who in this room is able to get a 3% home loan? I mean, they don't need the money. Why are we giving government largesse for that? I don't think there's a single company, a generator company that I've talked to that's going to take advantage of it. But it's an effort to put some lipstick on that pig. I voted against this, by the way.
We'll hear more about these 14 constitutional amendments and what State Representative Drew Darby had to say about them in a moment.
Real Talk with the Jenkins. We'll be right back after these messages.
I'm Dr. Leon. I'm an independent interventional cardiologist practicing in San Angelo over the last 18 years. This room is our endovascular suite. This is the first outpatient cath lab in Concho Valley. We perform invasive procedures to improve the blood flow to the patient's legs, arteries, and veins. We have all the equipment we need to perform these procedures very safely in these outpatient settings. We can perform atherectomy, which means remove the build-up plaque from the arteries of the legs, do balloon angioplasty, implant stents if needed, and we have all the technologies that the major medical centers have required to perform these procedures.
Call Cardiology Associates of West Texas at 325-944-1240. The definition of an expert is a person who has comprehensive knowledge, skill, and experience in a particular field. Michelangelo was an expert in sculpting and painting. But if you're looking for an expert in transmissions, then look no further than Gray's Transmissions. So if you find yourself in need of a new transmission, you need to make sure you have someone with expertise and experience.
We should know because we're the experts.
And now, back to Real Talk with the Jenkins.
We're back and you're watching Real Talk with the Jenkins. I'm Dr. G. Lady MJ has the day off, but she'll be back next time. In the meantime, we're talking about the 14 constitutional amendments that you'll be voting on November 7th. And State Representative Drew Darby had some comments about these amendments. And he recently addressed a recent Pachyderm Club luncheon and told the gathering there what he thought about those constitutional amendments, which ones he's for and which ones he is in opposition to. And so the next constitutional amendment is Proposition 8. It creates a broadband infrastructure fund to use state and federal funding to expand the Rural Broadband Initiative.
Prop 8 provides $1.5 billion to marry with the Fed dollars to create an infrastructure to distribute broadband services throughout the state of Texas. So this closes the digital divide. So if you live in rural Texas, and we certainly do, I would highly recommend you support Proposition 8.
Next is Proposition 9. These are proposed constitutional amendments that you will be voting on. And Proposition 9 authorizes a cost of living adjustment, COLA, and 13th check for Texas retired teachers.
What Prop 9 does is authorize the legislature to provide a cost of living adjustment or a COLA. I think it's long overdue. I think it is a step that focuses in on the longest retired teachers. If you're over, if you've been retired since before 2001, you get a fairly significant boost, and then it graduates on up to present day on the amount of cost of living index that you would receive. So I think if you have any respect for the teaching profession, for the commitment we've made to our public school teachers, I think Prop 9 would be something you might strongly consider supporting. I think it does our retired teachers, it helps right some of that wrong.
Also on the list is Proposition 10, which creates ad valorem taxation exemptions for medical and biomedical manufacturers.
I voted for it. Yeah, it's a worthy objective. You know, I probably, yeah, I'd like drug manufacturers to locate here. Number one, they might be under my more direct control. Right now, we don't have any real input in what they do and how they do it to us. So I voted for it, but I'm going to let that be to your own personal views.
Next is Proposition 11, which allows El Paso County to authorize conservation and reclamation districts to develop and finance local parks.
This is another one I voted against, because this would authorize El Paso conservation districts to issue bonds for parks supported by property tax. Now, yes, they've got to adopt it, but I mean, I just think, even though it provides local funding for parks improvements, I just don't want to give them more tools, and so that'd be one. Proposition 11 that you may want to consider, perhaps not vote for.
We'll be back with the final propositions in a moment.
Real Talk with the Jenkins. We'll be right back after these messages.
I'm Dr. Leon. I'm an independent interventional cardiologist practicing in San Angelo over the last 18 years. This room is our endovascular suite. This is the first outpatient cath lab in Concho Valley. We perform invasive procedures to improve the blood flow to the patient's legs, arteries, and veins. We have all the equipment we need to perform these procedures very safely in these outpatient settings. We can perform atherectomy, which means remove the build-up plaque from the arteries of the legs, do balloon angioplasty, implant stents if needed, and we have all the technologies that the major medical centers have required to perform these procedures.
Call Cardiology Associates of West Texas at 325-944-1240. The definition of an expert is a person who has comprehensive knowledge, skill, and experience in a particular field. Michelangelo was an expert in sculpting and painting. But if you're looking for an expert in transmissions, then look no further than Gray's Transmissions. So if you find yourself in need of a new transmission, you need to make sure you have someone with expertise and experience.
We should know the word experts.
And now, back to Real Talk with the Jenkins.
We're back, and you're watching Real Talk with the Jenkins. I'm Dr. G. Lady MJ has the day off. She'll be back next time. We're talking about the 14 constitutional amendments that you will be voting on November 7th. State Representative Drew Darby put a slideshow together to talk about these amendments, and he told a recent Pachyderm Club meeting which ones he supports and which ones he's in opposition to. And as we continue our look at these propositions, we come to Proposition 12, which abolishes the office of Galveston County Treasurer.
I just don't know if it's real clear about eliminating that office really results in any real savings, long-term savings. So, and I don't want to set a precedent for abolishing treasurers statewide without local input. So, suit yourself on that one, but you may want to consider voting against that one.
Next is Proposition 13, which raises the mandatory age of retirement for state judges from 75 to 79 years old.
Well, you know, I'm kind of the position, just because you turned 75 doesn't mean they need to put you out to pasture. I think we've got some great judges here in this state, and I just think the arbitrary age of 75 might be a little unrealistic.
And finally is Proposition 14, which creates the Centennial Parks Fund to develop and protect Texas's natural beauty.
This basically establishes a conservation fund, puts $1 billion worth of funding to increase natural areas and state parks throughout the state of Texas. Is that a good thing? Yeah, I think it's a good thing to add more parks. It's $1 billion that we've taken out of the Treasury to accelerate that. I am concerned, if any of you have been following Fairfield Lake issue in East Texas, former Vista plant, 5,000 acres, has been a part of it has been a state park for a number of years. Vista wanted to sell that 5,000 acres, including a huge lake, offered it to the state. State didn't want it. They entered into a contract to sell it to a private developer that's going to develop homes on the lake and perhaps move some of the water. And oh my God, you think the world's coming to an end. Well, the state is now engaged in condemnation against private landowners for the park. I mean, clearly I support parks, but I also support private property rights. And this guy came in when the state refused to act. He had a contract to buy the property, paid the consideration to buy it, now the state wants to take it. And use your money to do so. So you make the judgment on that.
And these are the proposed 14 constitutional amendments that all of us will be voting on November 7th. So we hope that this will help enlighten you and make you aware of what's coming up and how it will impact your life. You're watching Real Talk with the Jenkins. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for being with us, and we appreciate you allowing us to come into your homes. Until next time, I'm Gary Jenkins. Thanks for being with us. Bye-bye, everybody.
We invite you to come and worship with us. We're non-denominational, which means that we don't want you to dance through hoops of religiosity, but we want you to feel welcome and to learn about the Word of God. Come and worship with us. Sunday school starts every Sunday morning at 9 a.m., followed by our morning worship service at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Then on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m., it's our internet interactive Bible study at the church or online on Facebook. So come and worship with us. If you need prayer or you need a ride to church, give us a call at 203-410-6053. Call us and we'll be happy to pray with you on any issue. But come and worship with us at the Eagles Wings International Worship Center, 718 West Avenue Y in San Angelo.